Today's podcast is titled, Can Your Practice Truly Survive Without Insurance? By the way, I do have an announcement to make. We are changing the format of our podcast. We are going to literally answer questions that you send in. So today we're going to be picking 4 questions related to this topic. Can your practice truly survive without insurance? These are word for word questions you sent in. We didn't even correct any grammatical errors. So I'm going to read those questions to you and we're going to have Gary talk about them. So Gary, if you're ready, let's jump right in.
Aaron, what email address should they use to submit future questions?
Oh, that's a good point, Gary. The email address they should use to submit future questions are questions@lessinsurancedependence.com. Questions with an S at lessinsurancedependence.com.
And I want to encourage all of our listeners to submit questions. Any and all questions are we won't disclose names, so you don't have to worry about. You can remain anonymous, but we do want to have actual questions, as we have today, from our listeners, and those will be the format for our future Less Insurance Dependence podcast. So here's your chance. Ask those questions, and we'll make sure we include those in future episodes. Thanks, guys. Thanks in advance. We'll look forward to your emails.
Absolutely. Let's dive right in. So the first question I have for you from our audience is, what changes do you expect from Delta Dental going forward?
How long do I have, Naren? Can I take about 4 hours? No, I'm not going to do that. But the changes I expect from Delta Dental is that they will become more and more difficult to work with. Remember, Delta, they're listed as a nonprofit. Technically, they're a nonprofit. Except who does profit from Delta? Their CEO and their executive team.
Yes.
So the CEO and the executives at Delta are going to continue to line their pockets disproportionately with revenue that comes from the premiums that are being paid by the employers. Remember, Delta doesn't care one little bit about you as a provider. They don't need you as a provider. They don't need you. Why do I say that? Because there's plenty of other dentists in your community that accept Delta Dental. Delta is a monopoly. It's just not recognized by the government as a monopoly, but they are a monopoly. They don't need you. So what I anticipate is they're just going to play hardball and become more and more difficult. I see the fees lowering what is already low reimbursement. Those fees are going to be lowered. They're going to be asking for more documentation for you. They're going to be doing all kinds of things that make it more difficult for you as a provider to make Delta work in your practice. But I see the fees going down and I see the complications going up. They're going to ask for more documentation. They're going to ask for more narratives, more radiographs. They're going to deny services on a greater basis because that works for them and doesn't work for you. Nothing positive on the horizon about where Delta is going.
Thank you, Gary. I think that's a very good question, and I'm really appreciative of the audience member who sent that in. Let me go to question number 2. Why does Delta Dental send payments to the subscriber for out-of-network patients, and how can we change that?
Well, so Delta does not, in your state, if you're in Idaho, Delta of Idaho will not allow you to accept assignment of benefits. In other words, they will send the check directly to the patient. So accepting assignment of benefits simply means that they would send you the check as an office, as you're getting the benefits from the patient. Now, what they do instead, the Delta in your state will send the check to the patient. Why do they do that? Why do you think they do that? Why do you think Delta sends the check to the patient?
I think to annoy you, right? Because you went out of network, so they just want to make your life difficult.
Exactly. And by the way, once a lot of dentists realize that they will send the check to the patients, many dentists are so afraid of that because now they have to collect payment in full at time of service. Think about it. If the check's going to the patient, as a business, you need to collect payment at time of service. Think about what the difference was when you were in network versus when you're out of network. And let's talk about an adult hygiene appointment. So Naren, when you're an adult hygiene appointment coming in, the office is in network with Delta. How much do you have to pay out of pocket for a hygiene appointment, typically? How much do you have to pay?
Typically nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
It's covered at 100% and it's covered. So you don't have to, you wave on your way out. Bye. See you next time. No money exchanges hands.
Right.
Now imagine that you go out of network and I've got to collect at time of service, and then Delta's going to send you a check. Do you think the patient's excited about that?
I mean, most people don't like change. So of course, if you explain it like you have done with your clients, Gary, they get used to it. But
Yeah.
at
But
the
they don't like
beginning, they're
it.
not going to just expect it because that's not how things worked up until
Right.
today.
Well, that's so different. Now I have to pay, and now I'm supposed to get a check from Delta.
Yeah.
And many dentists, because of that, will be fearful of what might happen when you do that, that they won't resign. And
Fear
that's
of the
why Delta
unknown.
does it. Delta
Right.
does it because they want to apply pressure on you to stay in network. That's why.
Right.
Now, in most states, the patients you have from other Delta organizations, like for example, I'm using Idaho as the example. Well, people are moving all over the country now. They're moving. There's a lot of migration and movement going on. So a lot of people from California are moving from Idaho, Washington moving from Idaho, Oregon moving to Idaho. And so you'll have patients from Delta of California, Delta of Oregon, Delta of Washington. In most cases, those Delta organizations outside of your state will allow you to accept assignment of benefits from them, meaning that Delta will send you the check directly. If any PPO plan allows you to accept assignment of benefits, I say check that box because it makes it easier for the patient as opposed to being required to collect payment at full at time of service. So whenever they do give you the option of accepting assignment benefits, then be sure to accept it because it's one less inconvenience for the patient. Those are great questions, and it gives me a chance to comment about Delta.
Thank you, Gary.